One of last year's most underrated devices, the LG G6, is in for a timely replacement very soon, as LG normally showcases its flagship devices at the prolific MWC trade show in Barcelona, Spain, which is normally the stage at which many high-profile devices get announced and demoed. There's no reason to believe this won't be the case this year, too, as the rivalry between LG and Samsung is gradually getting more and more heated. Quite understandable, given that both have been outsmarting each other with every high-end phone generation. As the G7 is just around the corner, we thought it would be beneficial for all to summarize all we know about the device right here in this piece. Let's go. The LG G6 was among the very first devices with a tall 18:9 display and streamlined look that we now refer to as bezel-less design. The V30 built upon this spectacularly, too. Naturally, we widely expect that the G7 will continue the trend, and the leaks out there so far seem to corroborate this notion. While no credible leaked pictures and insider info have given us a sneak peek at the upcoming device just yet, assuming that the G7 will be closely styled after the G6 and even the V30 is a safe assumption. As far as build materials are considered, it's also safe to assume that glass and metal will be used a lot, with glass making up not only the front but the rear of the phone as well. The reason for this is the wireless water resistance and quite possibly military-grade shatter resistance are two other rather possible features of the LG G7. Of course, we say that because the G6 had those two in its feature list. When it comes to audio inputs, oh, you know we are talking about 3.5mm audio jacks, don't you? There's not enough info yet. Taking LG's love for hi-fi audio into account, it would make a ton of sense for the G7 to also come with some sort of high-quality DAC for superb hi-fi audio functionality on board. However, this doesn't imply that a 3.5mm audio jack would definitely be making an appearance. It really is up to LG to decide whether the traditional output would be present or not. LG hasn't gone the USB Type-C only way so far, but this doesn't mean things can't change with the G7. It's definitely going to be a Quad HD unit, that's almost granted, but now that LG has played with AMOLED displays like the one on the V30, there's no telling whether LG will go for an LCD or an AMOLED display. It's also quite plausible that the display will be compliant with the Dolby Vision and HDR10 standard, which is slowly but steadily becoming a standard for flagship devices. Knowing LG, we wouldn't be surprised if it throws in yet another wider color gamut support on the G7. There's a pretty good possibility that the G7 might take a ton of cues from the LG V30, which had the widest aperture at the time, f/1.6. It was collecting light towards a 16MP sensor, whereas the 13MP wide-angle camera had an f/1.9 aperture. Of course, hardware makes up nearly half the equation, as software is equally important, and LG had done a commendable job at eking the most out of the sensors. Last year, LG had the misfortune of suffering from Samsung's ambition, which had it hoard the initial batch of Snapdragon 835 chips, forcing LG to put the nimble, but morely old Snapdragon 821 inside the G6. Fortunately for LG, this might not be the case for 2018, as numerous reports claim that Samsung hasn't been able to secure exclusivity over the new Snapdragon 845. Of course, that one is the prime candidate for making the LG G7 tick and click. Comprising 4 cores running at 2.85 GHz and another 4 efficient ones clocked at 1.8 GHz, the Snapdragon 845 is built on a 10nm manufacturing process and is supposed to be way faster and more power efficient than its predecessor, which is always welcome. LG's top-tier phones are not exactly known for their battery endurance, so a more efficient chipset will most certainly help the G7 last longer on a single charge while offering unprecedented performance. There are no rumors yet how much RAM the G7 will boast, but it's safe to say that 4GB of the stuff is the bare minimum. From there on, LG could really go with 6 or even 8GB if it wants to compete with the most spec'd out devices out there. Same goes for storage. 64GB is already the standard for flagship phones, and it's a safe bet to assume the G7 will come with at least that much native storage inside. As far as pricing goes, we expect to see the LG G7 priced anywhere between $700 to $800. The LG G6 had a $699 price tag at launch but quickly lost a ton of its value due to one reason or another, so the absolute bare minimum that the LG G7 is going to be priced is, logically, $699. There's no way LG is pricing its next flagship any lower given that, and yet it could still command a rather stomachable price tag for the hardware you will get. Finally, a release date for the LG G7 should be anywhere in the March to April time window, with South Korea naturally getting it first and the rest of the key global markets following suit.